What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast, and today, what we're going to talk about flip of the switch moment. What does that really mean? Now, there's this thread that I found really intriguing, and I tend to agree with a lot of what he's saying here, and I hope this makes sense to you as it did to me. Now, this is Neatsbucks, I think that's how you pronounce it. He said he wants to talk about the video with David Schwartz of him talking about CBDCs and NFTs, which I did a video on it earlier, which you should watch. And he said this set up a light bulb for him. And I think he revealed something very important that will dispel the false narrative that Ripple CBDC plan does not use XRP. And he also thinks he figured out what the term flip of the switch means, which is the big takeaway from this. Now, he said, in regard to CBDCs, imagine every major financial institution in the world able to settle every major fiat asset from compatible jurisdictions down to a central bank's ledger in a few seconds. How is that not a very big deal? It is a big deal. And also, what I'm showing here is his opinions, okay, not mine. And I thought it was very interesting. So that's why I'm showing it. But then he mentioned the term sidechain of XRPL, and there was an aha moment for me. Now, this is going to get super technical, so yeah, just follow along here as best you can. So he says, what is a sidechain? A sidechain is basically a fork of a ledger that can use the native asset of the original ledger while maintaining its own set of rules and its own bookkeeping. For our purposes, this means that contrary to previous beliefs, these CBDCs, purely assumed to be just private XRPL forks, might actually be XRPL sidechains and therefore may in fact still use the native asset XRP. Okay, you might be saying, what's the difference between a private XRPL and an XRPL sidechain? Well, a private XRPL would achieve interoperability with public XRPL with IOUs centrally issued on both ledgers. This is not ideal for many reasons, as it's centralized on both ends, Ripple's and the central banks, and in this case, XRP is not needed in any way for the private version. But a sidechain XRPL would allow the central bank sidechain the ability to be private, be centralized, and yet still utilize the decentralized asset XRP for settlement on both ledgers. Now, David said central banks want an off button, but that is why they will not issue directly on XRPL. But with an XRPL sidechain, you still have that off button. And now, let's think about when David said the CBDCs will be walled gardens until they are ready to bring down those walls. When the walls are ready to come down, the central banks, not Ripple, could press another button or switch to lower these walls. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting and exciting on based off his opinion. He says with a sidechain, the central bank can flip the switch and the private and public XRPLs become interoperable, and you'll be able to move any asset from any ledger to any other without resorting to issuing XRP as an IOU on private ledgers. This is true interoperability. Now that is key. That's the key flip of the switch aha moment that he was talking about earlier. Think of how Binance Smart Chain issues ERC20 tokens on its chain, but still controls everything and still needs to use BNB, their native asset. This is how the central banks could use the private ledgers. Now, the world David was describing today is a world with a big button that central banks can press to lower the walls and unleash the internet of value. And when that switch is flipped, everyone can use XRP everywhere. To sum up, the idea of private XRPLs will never use XRP is probably wrong. The type of interoperable CBDC system David is describing seems a lot like a city of sidechains where central banks can keep their control. Yet one flip of the switch lowers the walls and two worlds become one. Now, I thought that was a very fantastic opinion and breakdown of what he felt that flip of the switch moment means, and basically this sums up what he's trying to say. When the central banks flip the switch, it may not mean that price instantly changes. It can be, I don't know, but it can also mean that now you can become truly interoperable and you can move any asset from any ledger in anywhere, and you issue and it says any other without resorting to issuing XRP as an IOU on private ledgers. So this is huge, and I tend to think that this is very much a way in which things will happen, right? CBDCs are becoming a main talking point in the mainstream media and by regulators across the world. And when this is ready to go and everything is set, which it's getting close, you can see that that flip of the switch moment will mean that we'll have true interoperability everywhere. I hope this episode has brought you some value. Like and subscribe. And flip of the switch moment is all it could be dependent on the banks and their readiness to launch their central bank digital currencies. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.